Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's story. What if the man you loved, the one you trusted with all your heart, is hiding a secret that could shatter your world? Diep's life is turned upside down when she discovers that James, her once beloved, has something much deeper with his secretary. A shocking revelation that threatens everything she believed in. Will Diep confront the truth, or will she be consumed by the betrayal? Stay tuned to find out what happens next. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more intense, must-watch stories. Diep sat quietly in the small, dimly lit room, the faint glow from the window casting long shadows across the desk. She opened her laptop, but her thoughts remained distant, unfocused. The hum of the machine was drowned out by the echo of her mother's voice in her mind, questioning her about her future, about marriage, about love. Each time her mother brought up finding a partner, the idea of settling down, Diep felt a rising unease. She wasn't sure whether it was the pressure or the fear of something more. A life filled with choices that felt uncertain and overwhelming. "Mom, I just want to work," Diep replied in her mind, though even she wasn't sure if that was truly the case. Was it work that she wanted, or was it simply a way to avoid confronting her feelings? The truth was, she didn't know. Every moment spent thinking about the future felt like a step further away from dealing with the past. A past that still clung to her heart. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves of the trees, creating a gentle, soothing sound. It was as though nature itself was trying to calm her restless heart. Her thoughts drifted to James, the man she had once loved deeply. Now, he was nothing but a distant memory, a painful reminder of what had been. Could she forgive the wounds he had caused? Was there any way to move forward, or was she forever bound to the past? The light in the room began to fade as time passed, but Diep's inner turmoil remained. She knew a decision had to be made, but where to start? And more importantly, did she have the courage to make it? Tung's presence was like a soft anchor in Diep's life, especially in moments like these, when the weight of uncertainty threatened to drown her. He arrived at her house early that morning, as always, carrying with him a sense of calm that Diep had come to rely on. His gentle manner and quiet care were a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts that swirled in her mind. "Are you feeling better?" Tung asked, his voice steady, though his concern was evident in his eyes. He placed a bowl of porridge on the table and set it in front of Diep with a soft smile. She nodded, though the truth was she wasn't entirely sure. Physically, she felt better, but mentally, everything was still up in the air. The thought of James, his words, his promises, seemed to linger just beneath the surface, like a shadow that refused to leave. It was hard to ignore the tension that existed between them, even after all this time. "Thank you," Diep said quietly, taking a spoonful of the porridge. She didn't have the words to express the gratitude she felt for Tung, not just for his constant presence, but for the way he made her feel cared for. But even as she ate, a part of her felt conflicted. How long could she continue living like this, caught between the past and the present? Tung sat across from her, watching her with an intensity that made Diep feel exposed, as if he could see the tangled mess of emotions within her. She glanced up at him, and their eyes met for a brief moment, one full of unspoken understanding. "Diep," he said softly, "I just want you to be happy. And if staying with James only brings you pain, then maybe it's time to let go." His words hung in the air between them, both a question and a quiet plea. Diep took another bite of porridge, the spoon shaking slightly in her hand. She had heard those words before, but today they felt different. Could she let go? Could she truly leave James behind? The room was quiet, the afternoon sun casting long shadows on the floor. Diep sat at her desk, absent-mindedly flipping through papers. Her mind was still clouded with Tung's words. She didn't know how to move forward, or even if she could. Just as she began to focus, her phone rang, breaking her train of thought. The name on the screen made her pause. James. Hesitant, she answered, her voice barely audible. "Diep," James said, his voice smooth yet strained. "We need to talk." Her heart skipped a beat, her mind racing. She agreed, and soon found herself at his office. The tension in the room was palpable as James paced back and forth, his face unreadable. When he saw her, his eyes locked on hers, searching for some hint of her thoughts. "I've been meaning to tell you something," he said, his voice shaky. "The secretary, she's pregnant." Diep froze, her heart sinking. The words hung in the air, heavy and painful. Was this real, or was it a misunderstanding? James spoke again, his voice softer. "I didn't know how to tell you. I never wanted you to find out this way." Diep's mind raced as she struggled to process his words. She turned away, her heart aching. Was this the truth, or was she just another victim of a cruel twist of fate? The silence between them grew thick, and Diep couldn't bring herself to look at him. Was this really happening? Diep walked out of the office, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway, each one a reminder of the weight pressing down on her chest. The words "pregnant" and "secretary" replayed in her mind over and over, until they blurred together into a sickening ache. She couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, but at the same time, a small part of her wondered if there was some kind of misunderstanding. How could she be sure of anything now? Tung's face was the first thing she saw when she returned to the house. He looked up from his work and immediately noticed the change in her expression. The warm concern in his eyes made Diep's chest tighten. "Diep," Tung said, his voice calm yet filled with worry. "Are you okay?" She shook her head, struggling to find the words. She didn't know how to explain the chaos inside her. Instead, she collapsed into a chair, her hands trembling. She had trusted James, had believed in their relationship, but now everything felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Tung sat beside her, his presence steadying her, though it couldn't ease the storm inside her. "You don't have to do this alone," he whispered. But Diep wasn't sure she could trust anyone anymore, not even herself. "I don't know what to believe," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "Is this real, or am I just imagining it?" The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words. Diep's heart was torn, but the one thing she knew for certain was that she couldn't keep living in the shadow of uncertainty. The evening had arrived, and the house was quiet, the air heavy with unspoken words. Diep sat by the window, her gaze lost in the darkness outside. Tung's voice echoed in her mind, the words he had spoken earlier ringing louder than ever. "If staying with James only brings you pain, then maybe it's time to let go." She didn't know if she was ready to hear that. Letting go of James wasn't just about leaving a man. It was about releasing an entire chapter of her life, a part of her that still clung to the memories they had shared. Could she truly walk away from it all? Tung entered the room quietly, as if sensing the weight on her heart. He sat beside her, his presence calm and grounding. He didn't say anything at first, simply sat in the silence with her, as though offering his company as a comfort. "I don't know, Tung," Diep whispered after a while, her voice small, fragile. "I still love him, but I don't know if I can trust him anymore. Can I really let go? What if this is just a mistake?" Tung turned to her, his eyes soft but firm. "Love isn't supposed to bring you pain, Diep. You deserve peace, not endless confusion. If you're still holding on to him, then it's because you're afraid of letting go, not because you're meant to be with him." Diep closed her eyes, his words sinking into her soul like an anchor, trying to steady the chaos within her. Could she believe in what Tung was saying? Could she trust herself to make the right decision? For the first time, Diep allowed herself to consider a different path, a life where she wasn't bound by the past, a life where she could find peace, even if it meant walking away from the love she once thought was everything. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and indecision for Diep. She found herself torn between the past that had shaped her and the present that was now unfolding. Her feelings for James lingered, but so did the painful memory of his betrayal. Even though he had apologized, even though he had promised to make things right, Diep couldn't erase the image of the secretary's pregnancy from her mind. One afternoon, Diep found herself standing at the door of James's house, her heart pounding in her chest. She had told herself she would not return. She had told herself she would let go, but here she was, standing in front of the very place that once felt like home. Her hand hovered over the doorbell, but she couldn't bring herself to press it. The silence around her was deafening. Her mind raced, remembering the times she had spent here, the warmth of his embrace, the promises he had made. But the pain of the present reality gnawed at her. Was she willing to return to this? As if reading her thoughts, Tung's voice broke through the silence. He had arrived without her noticing, standing behind her, steady and silent. "You don't have to do this, Diep," Tung said softly, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't owe him anything." Diep turned to face him, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision. She didn't speak. There were no words left to say. The only thing she knew for sure was that standing here in front of the house that had once meant everything to her only brought more pain. "I know," she finally whispered, her voice breaking. She could feel the tear slipping down her cheek, but she didn't move to wipe it away. Maybe this was the answer she'd been searching for all along. The wind had shifted, and the sky was beginning to darken as Diep and Tung made their way back to the house. The walk was slow, the air heavy with the weight of unsaid words. Diep's thoughts were scattered, torn between the past and what could be. Each step felt like a moment of clarity, each one taking her further from the man who had once held her heart and closer to the reality she needed to face. Tung walked beside her, silent but supportive, his presence like a calm river in the storm of her emotions. Diep felt a strange sense of comfort in his quiet strength. She didn't have to explain herself to him. He understood, perhaps better than anyone. When they reached the house, Diep paused at the door, looking up at the familiar place that had once held so many memories. It was still the same house, yet everything had changed. The love she had once felt for it, for him, had faded, replaced by something new, something stronger, her own independence. "I don't know what comes next, Tung," Diep whispered, her voice trembling. "But I know this much. Whatever I choose, I have to do it for myself. I can't keep living in the shadow of the past." Tung nodded, his eyes soft but unwavering. "That's all anyone can do, Diep. Choose what makes you whole." Diep stepped inside the house, leaving behind the memories of a past love that no longer served her. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. Maybe it wasn't about finding perfect answers or making the right choice all the time. Maybe it was simply about learning to trust herself. As she closed the door behind her, Diep whispered softly, almost as if to herself, "Sometimes the greatest freedom comes from letting go."
Thế giới của Diệp bị xáo trộn khi cô phát hiện một bí mật gây sốc về James, người mà cô từng yêu. Sau khi phát hiện thư ký của James đang mang thai của anh, trái tim Diệp bị chia cắt giữa quá khứ của cô không thể quên và tương lai không chắc chắn. Khi đối diện với nỗi đau về bị phản bội, về sự bất an và những gì phía trước, người bạn thân Tùng luôn bên cạnh, động viên và khuyên cô buông bỏ. Tuy nhiên, Diệp tự hỏi liệu có đủ mạnh mẽ để bỏ James? Liệu cô có tìm được sức mạnh để bước tiếp, hay sống mãi sống trong bóng tối quá khứ? Hãy xem Diệp đối diện với quyết định khó khăn nhất trong cuộc đời.